Hi guys, welcome. My name is Amanda. For those of you that are new to the channel, for those of you who've been here before, welcome back again, and friends and family, gear day. So today has been a busy day already. It started at 3:30 this morning, and that was in preparation for what was going to be a long baking day today. So I've got to do some white bread. I've got to do a fermented dough bread as well, which is similar to a sourdough, but it's a cheats version. It's much quicker and easier to do. So I've got to do that one as well. I'll also be testing out new bakeware, this guy. Alrighty, so that there is a new piece of earthenware bakeware. I broke my old bakeware dish, which was more than 30 years old, so unfortunately I have to start again. So yeah, so we have to test this guy out once again. So it currently has got to go into the oven to be baked, so we've got to do that as well. So I need to season it for the first time. I'm also pulling out the Pullman tin to do a large white sandwich bread, and I'm also going to be doing our protein balls. We need to have protein balls. We love them, and we have none in the refrigerator at the moment, and so while I'm waiting for the bread to rise, I'll also do the protein balls. Okay, bread baking time. Radio, no surprise there, but I am going to do my fermented loaf as well. That is the plan. So I needed this guy. This is a earthenware cloche, and this particular one is from the UK, from a company called Kitchen Craft, and it needs to be seasoned in the oven. This is a brand new one. This one hasn't been used. I did have an older one, but I broke it. And when you break something that's 30 years old, it is not good, traumatic. So I've got to start again, but that's okay because I'm also getting one of these for a gift. So this particular one needs to be put into the oven and baked for an hour to strengthen the earthenware. It has already been glazed once, but it needs to be strengthened again. And then every time you bake with them, they get stronger and stronger. So full temperature oven for an hour, which will give me plenty of time to get my dough ready. Into the oven this guy needs to go. So for 1 hour, high temp. So I'll start the white sandwich bread. It's early in the morning, so it's still quite cool. And it needs plenty of time to rise. 350 mils or grams of water, 3 teaspoons of sugar, one heaped a spoon of salt, cream of tartar, just a teaspoon rubbed between the hands just to get out any lumps. And then we can add some yeast. I need about 1.5 teaspoons, and I need 30 grams of an oil. I use coconut oil in mine, and 30 grams equals just a tablespoon usually. Okay, yeast. And most importantly, bread flour. 600 grams of bread flour. And then we can add the yeast. Save that for later because I've got another loaf to do as well. Yeast, I normally add 2 teaspoons. Gives me just under 8 grams. Well, 8 grams we'll bring it up to, and because it's a little bit colder, I'm just going to increase that a little bit. I know, colder. We have those days sometimes. I never go over 10 grams of yeast, but every bread's different. Every flour reacts differently. Into a stand mixer, this needs to blend for 5 minutes at least. All right, it's been 5 minutes. Time to get the dough off the hook. This is our white sandwich bread. All right, this is one that my son likes. Doesn't want the recipe changed at all. Never do. It's always the same. If you want white bread that tastes like store-bought white bread or bakery white bread, then this is the recipe that we use, that we've tested repeatedly, changed, added, altered, manipulated to suit our tastes. And it seems to be the closest to white bread that we can come up with at home. Alrighty, so simply removing the dough It's not an overly sticky dough, thank goodness. Can handle it. Little bit of dough left in that bowl that I want out. So I've stuck with this recipe that we fiddled with, played with, and use only this one for the white sandwich bread. I've stuck to the percentage rule for baking as far as the salt, yeast, and water goes. More the water. I don't want to increase the water volume too much to make it too sticky a dough for a sandwich bread. This needs to proof now, or rise, ferment, whatever you want to call it. We call it proofing. So I need it to have its first rise. So I've just coated this container with some oil. Again, the dough maker that's coming has its own fermenting ability, which means I can do away with this step as well if I want to. I like doing this. I like making bread, so it doesn't bother me particularly. But with the temperature fluctuations, with the fermenter that's built into the machine, the dough maker that I've got on order, it is more temperature controlled, which is what we need here on this property because of the fluctuating temperatures. Like, it's cold this morning, 18 degrees, whereas for the past week it's been like 28 in the morning. All right, I'll get on to the fermented bread. And it begins with the sourdough, not really sourdough, but fermented dough, which has been in the refrigerator now for this one about, what day are we at? Okay, so this one's been in the fridge for about 5 days. Every 5 to sort of 7 days, I like to use this dough. So it's been in the fridge fermenting, and it is full of air, lots and lots of bubbles and gases. So this is what we're going to be using, and you can completely replace your yeast by using this starter dough, or you can still add a little bit of yeast if you want a sweeter flavoured bread, not so much sourness. And so that's what I'll be doing. I'll be adding a little tiny bit of yeast, fresh yeast, to this loaf. This is a bigger loaf. So we begin with our flour. This is baker's flour, bread flour, and we do need a lot to start with because we reserve a portion of this at the end of the fermenting stage, or the first rise stage. We reserve some of this to put back in the fridge for the next bread loaf. So it is 900 grams of flour. That's okay. Like I said, we put aside between 250 and 500 grams, depending on what size loaf you're making. To that we need to add 30 grams, which is about a tablespoon, of shortening of some sort. This keeps the bread nice and moist. We definitely need, and it keeps it fresh as well, stops it from going dry over a day or two. So this bread, in actual fact, I've used this bread repeatedly, and we've had bread rolls made from this exact mix that have still been soft 5 days later. Perfectly fine, almost just like the day that they were first baked. So it does help to have the shortening oil. You can use oil. I've used coconut oil in mine. Instant yeast. So this is going to replace most of my instant yeast. This is 250 grams, but I still want to add some fresh yeast because I want not a really heavily strong sour taste. I want some sweetness in mine. So I'm actually just going to add 4 grams of yeast, which is just over a teaspoon. Okay. And then I will add my dough. This also increases the hydration. I'll show you this dough up close. All those bubbles. Okay. So you want it to smell like, I guess, effervescence ginger beer bug is the best I can describe it. So it is a fermenting dough. Okay, so it will smell, but it's not sour as such. Alrighty, we need some sugar. We are just going to move this dough away. 9 grams of sugar. I'm going to feed our dough because she's hungry. 9 grams, which is about 3 teaspoons or so If I can get it in there. That's 3, that's 7. That was 4 teaspoons of a caster sugar. Salt, you do need salt. We need 18 grams of salt for this recipe. Now what I'm going to do is, because salt and yeast don't like each other, I'm just going to tuck all of that yeast and sugar and dough beneath my flour before I add my salt. Do you need to do it? It's up to you. Salt can kill your yeast. And this isn't exactly a tiny amount of salt. It is 18 grams. That's our salt. And the next ingredient is entirely optional, and I'm only doing it because I'm doing a fermented bread, and that is a bread improver. So the bread improver, do or don't, it's up to you. I normally don't. It's the only time I ever do is when I'm doing this fermented style bread. It's not a huge amount. Whatever percentage of your bread flour is, whatever your bread flour weighs. So my bread flour in this case was 900 grams. I only need to add 9 grams of this improver, which is still 9 grams. So these bread improvers contain enzymes and the like in order to keep the bread fresh, but it changes the hydration level of the bread itself, so it keeps it moist. So you've got to be careful when you're adding your water. So the recipe is between 550 and 600 grams of water. I err on the side of caution and I start at 500. I should also mention I took my starter out of the refrigerator about 4 hours ago. It was about 3:30 in the morning, about 3 hours ago, 6:30 at the moment, just to bring it to room temperature. You don't want to shock it by taking it out of the fridge and using it when it's freezing cold. It doesn't like that. It takes a lot longer for your bread to rise doing that. So always bring it back to room temperature beforehand. Remember, I'm reserving 500 grams of this because I've now used all of my starter and I need to keep 250 to 500 grams. And that's what I'll be doing. I'll put this in the stand mixer and see what this looks like at 500 mils of warm water. So, just on a slow speed, we'll get it started. It changes over the 5 minutes it takes to knead, so if it's a little bit dry at the beginning, that's okay. When we turn the speed up, it quite often changes. So it's got to be fully incorporated, and then the gluten chains need to develop. So it takes a little bit, and this is a lot of dough for this machine to be doing. Right, we're just going to turn the speed up a little and let it get going, doing its kneading, and I'll probably have to move that dough down the hook a little bit. This is the reason I'm changing to a bread dough maker specifically, because of these larger loaves that I make, and it's a lot of work for a stand mixer to be mixing what turns out to be, that's 14, about 1.5 kilos plus of dough. It's a lot of work on its motor. So I need my stand mixers. I don't want them dying. So I'm going to get a designated dough maker, which you'll see in future videos. Alright, I'm just going to let this thing do its thing. I'm just going to up its speed and let it go for 5 minutes. I'm not going to add any extra fluid at this stage. Alrighty, we've had our 5 minutes of kneading. We've got that out. Really hard work on this machine to do such a big loaf, which is why I'm getting myself as a treat a designated bread machine. Alrighty, this dough, I have just checked it, because I want to make sure that it's strong enough. I'm going to do what's called the window pane test. So you open up your dough and you stretch it until you can see through it. It's a bit difficult to see it there, but if I hold it up against my window, I can see through the dough without it tearing. So it's ready. So we're going to get that out of the bowl. Same thing as the first dough. It's a little bit stickier. Not much, just a little bit. It should be, because it's got that fresh yeast dough, fermented dough in it. Right, so this one now needs to go into its bowl. Oh God, there's some weight in that. I'm going to take out the amount that I need for me to reserve, which is 500 grams. Okay, that is still going to need to rise, so I'm going to put its lid on that, leave it here, let it ferment for an hour as well, and then it can go in the fridge. This one is going to go into this container, which I need to get ready. I'm going to let this one now rise. Till it's at least double, if not bigger. Into there. Bit of oil on top. Lid on. That's our fermented dough. So we've had over an hour. It's baked, it's cooled, and it's ready to use. Alrighty, so that's our cloche ready to go. Our dough for our white sandwich bread has also risen. So we're going to get this one out, shape it, and let it rise a second time. The dough for our sourdough type dough, our fermented dough, it's not quite ready yet. So we're going to leave that there. We're going to continue with this one. Okay, so we've got our silicone mat. I don't add extra flour when I do breads. Add some oil to the surface instead, and then our dough will come out of its container. That's why we oiled it. Okay, so that's our sandwich dough. Now that that's ready, our dough to go back into the refrigerator. This is our 500 grams that's been reserved, so this now goes in the refrigerator for future breads. I'll put a link in the description on how to make the starter from the beginning, because there is a few extra steps, but once it's made, it's just a matter of keeping it and reserving it each time, and then it can stay in the refrigerator. I say up to 10 days to keep it in the refrigerator for. Anything longer than that, it gets a little bit strong in flavour. So I tend to use it within a week. It's not an issue. So I'm just getting my Pullman tin ready. So the manufacturers say not to oil these tins, and I normally wouldn't oil a bread tin. This one just had a lot of flour left in it, which is fine. It's not an issue. But the last couple of loaves have just been catching a little bit on the side. So what I'm going to do is just, while the oven's on hot, I'm just going to add some oil to that. I'm just going to re-season it again one more time, and then I'll bake with it. So while the oven's warm, I'll put this tin in and just re-season this bread tin. This is the Pullman. It's the big one that does the big loaf of bread. It can do up to 1 kilo of dough. And no more, definitely no more. Alrighty, so it's just going to go back in the oven and just season a little bit more. It's still a new tin. Anything under 20 years here is new, but this one really is new. I've only been using this for a few months. So back into the oven this can go. Let's make some protein balls. Really simple, healthier option, but easy to make. And you don't have to spend all that money buying protein balls, and you can make them very quickly. They're no bake. 1.5 cups of pitted dates. Don't need to chop them or anything yet, because we're going to soak them and then we're going to put them up in a blender. We're just going to add boiling water till they're covered, and then we're just going to put them aside and get the rest of the ingredients ready. Really simple, very quick recipe. It takes no time at all. I have to just get rid of these dates. Rightio, that's my leftover dates. Seal it up into the refrigerator, and then we'll get the rest of the ingredients together. I'll put the recipe, because it's got a few ingredients in it. You can make this however you like, you can customise it, but the base is pretty simple. You can just switch out some of the ingredients, like I'm using muesli, for example. That's my little tweak to the recipe, but you can use rolled oats. I don't have rolled oats, I don't keep rolled oats. And instead I've got a gluten-free muesli that I'll be using instead. We all start with it though with 1.5 cups of almond meal or almond flour. So that's my 1.5 cups. Rightio, 2/3 a cup of rolled oats, or in my case I'm using a muesli. So 2/3 of a cup, 1/2 cup of desiccated coconut, really simple. You'll need a little bit extra as well to roll the balls in at the end. Right, so 2/3 of a cup of those. So that's the coconut going in. Now, this is where I do a few different things. Chia seeds, as well as flax seeds. And I'm using the roasted flax seeds, not the golden flax seeds. It's just a teaspoon of each of those. If you don't have the seeds, that's okay, you don't have to. We like the crunch that they give. Cocoa powder. So, 3 tablespoons of a cocoa powder as well. Nuts going in, quick blend, and just going to chop them up. Put that together. Give it a quick stir through, just to mix it all evenly. The dates are almost ready. So they've just been soaking in that boiling water. So we're just going to mix this through, just breaking up any of the almond. Now my lovely daughter who loves this recipe, Caitlin, if you're watching this, when you're using the muesli, make sure you take out the macadamia nuts. Save them for later for munching on, but they can't be in this recipe because they're toasted and they're quite large, and the balls that we make are not hugely large anyway. So if we leave the macadamias in, because we both make the same recipe, so if you're going to use nuts, it's best to break them up. So everything's kind of the same consistency as the rolled oats. That's the sort of the most size you're looking for when you're doing them. All right, and then all we need to do is drain off our dates, but reserve the liquid, because we're going to use that liquid maybe to incorporate in with this mix. So you just want to reserve it to add it, because you do need some liquid in here. That's another nut. Take that out as well. Okay, let's drain off the dates, and then we can blitz them up in the machine as well. Just got to do it by hand. I'm not using a strainer or anything else. I don't want any more dishes than what I already have, and today's a baking day, so I already have a few dishes, but not many. I need to check that bread as well. I've got my timer on. I've got 10 minutes to go to reach the first 30 minutes. The second loaf is starting to look good now. So into that bowl goes our dates. We're just going to blitz them up until they're well combined. So that's still quite thick for my liking. So I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons, maybe a tablespoon to start with, of the reserved water and bring it together again. It's too dry like that. Now let's have a look at this one. That's better. So it's more moist. So we need that moisture to bring these balls together. Okay, combine them together, roll them into small balls. From memory, makes about 30 balls, depending on the size you make. And it is one of those recipes that you will need to get your hands in to form the balls as well. You might be able to start off initially using a spatula, but not for long. This is just to get all of the cocoa and things like that coated with as much liquid as possible before, and then I can decide before I go in with my hands whether or not I need to add any extra liquid, because we want them to stay together, but we don't want them too moist. So looking at it, it looks quite dry until you start squeezing them together, and then you realise they're actually not. So I don't need to add any extra liquid, ready to form the balls. So I'm just going to use wet hands when I do it. Just before I go any further, just check this bread. Starting to look like nowhere near ready. So I'm going to roll my dough balls, my protein balls, while that's continuing to rise. Our second bread, it's getting there, but it's still not ready. You can check it. When you press into your dough, see that, how those indentations are not changing. So that's definitely not ready. So I'm just going to pop it back on the windowsill, let it still do its thing. It's not ready to shape yet, even though it's close to size right, that it's not ready. And this is a reasonably largish loaf. All right, we need to make these into balls, so I'm just going to go wet my hands, bring a bowl over here, and we can start. So just hands in water, so they're nice and wet, and then we start. I only ever tend to do teaspoon size balls. That is way big enough. Doesn't need to be any larger than that. And again, these then get rolled in coconut as well. The more you work the mix, the more those dates release that liquid also. So it may appear initially that it's not moist enough, but they hold together perfectly fine. Alright, so I don't want to use a whole heap of plates. I use the same bowl that I'm using my mix in. I don't see the point of making more dishes. So I just continue to roll the balls until all of the mix is gone, until they're all been rolled, and then I wash hands and start on the coconut afterwards. Nearly there. Oh yeah, let's just get these last. Alright, we're done. Messy job, but worth it. I'm going to put them into a bowl. What I do is I take my bowl of balls, because it's a big bowl, and I just coat them in the coconut first, so I don't get too much. Have a little bit excess, that's okay, because I've got to roll the other side of it yet. Just give them a shake around. Because we've used our water to roll them, the outside of these balls are moist enough to take up that coconut. Alrighty, that's it. All of them can be transferred individually, just to make sure they're covered, into the refrigerator until they're chilled, and then I'll transfer them into their own bowl. It is, oh, still got 10 minutes. We did that pretty quick. Check on that dough again, the fermented dough, and see if it's ready to knock down and shape as well. There you go. That's our balls done. Not very much wasted. 15 minutes. Nope, still. Maybe 5 to go. It's close. It is close. I want that just a little bit higher because I want that full square loaf. So let's check our fermented dough, because this should be ready by now. It's had ample time. So see those divots that we put in earlier? It's probably hard to tell, but they're actually now only about half as deep as they were beforehand. And it's completely different to touch feeling. It's not firm. So this is ready. How much has it gone up to? To about 2.5, which is pretty good. Let's get this one shaped and get it into the cloche so that we can get it into the oven as well. Just let that come out of its container. Thank you. It's a little bit on the wet side. Good to know. All right, I'm not going to add anything to my hands. And the tray's always oiled anyway, so that's fine. All right. This is the size we're aiming for. It's a bit bigger, but we'll get there. Just going to roll my sides. I'm going to shake it this way first. Just want to get out some of that excess air, that crummies. I saw it earlier as well. And remember, the top always stays the top, so I've just flipped it over so it's on the bottom now. And now I'm going to shape it to put it into that container. I want a really nice light eat. That is going to be very light because it's the fermented dough. But using the cloches, these guys, you cook them initially covered with the lid on, and then halfway through the cook, which is about a 45-minute to an hour cook, you remove the lid and take it off. And then I'll check the temperature of the center of the bread before I take it out of the oven together. Alrighty, let's roll this guy up to shape. So each roll I press down with my palms, I flick it down, that's why my wrists are probably so sore lately. Using the palm part, the base here, to flatten your seam in. That way you end up with a really nice crumb. Can't spread all that crumb. Especially when you're working with gluten-free dough, which we're going to be doing later on. All right, no oil in the bottom of, I should flour it though. I've got semolina. I don't like adding flour to breads. I've got some fine semolina, and I think I'll use that on the bottom instead. You don't oil a cloche, ever. No oil or anything getting added to them, but flour is okay. I'm just trying to avoid adding raw flour, so a bit of semolina will help stop it from sticking. Alrighty, here goes our little baby to rest, and we're going to wait for that to reach the surface here. Okay, that's a good size loaf. And then we've got to score this one before it goes into the oven as well. So I'm just going to pop its lid on, and I'm not going to put it on top of the jars because it's a heavier vessel and I don't want to risk it. I'm going to come back when this is ready. Okay, Pullman loaf is out. I just need to check its temperature. So I'm looking for an internal temperature of the bread to be above 94 for it to be ready. It looks nice. We've got to get it out of this tin. It has been cooking for 40 minutes. Let's see. Straight away. 96, 97, 96, 97, rightio. So I'm happy that that's fully cooked, so it can come out. So I've used these pans a few times now, and it seems to be sort of 30 minutes is about right. Alrighty, let's get this guy out. Now I have, on a few occasions, read that it's best to put this loaf, these Pullman loaves, back into an oven to allow them to cool down, to prevent them from sinking in the middle. That's our Pullman loaf. Look at that. Pretty good, isn't she? Okay, this bread that has been resting away for the last hour or so, nearly ready. Rightio. So what I'm going to do is I want to put sesame seeds on the top of it, but in order to do that they need to stick, so I'm going to have to brush them. Before I can do that though, I'm going to have to score the bread. So I've got my razor. I'm going to behave and just use the 2 fingers as we've been told to do as I just open up this beautiful loaf. This is where baking gets fun. Creative. All right. Few beautiful little slits into our bread. We're just going to brush that with some, just doing an egg wash gently so I don't deflate this at all, because that would just be a shame. So just some simple egg wash into this one, and then some white sesame seeds over the top, and then into the oven, which is full temp at the moment, 220, and it's been going now for a few hours, so it is nice and hot. We're going to pop it in with the cover on for the first half of the cook. The full amount of time this bread's going to take, because this is the fermented bread, the full amount of time that this bread will take will be between 45 and 60 minutes. I'm going to aim for 45. We'll see how we go. We'll check it at 30. At 30, I'll take the cloche off the top as well. Into the oven, we're going to bake this little baby. So I'll set my timer for 30, because we're going to turn it around at 30 anyway, but at 30 I'll be able to tell whether or not it needs longer than the 45 minutes. Alrighty, back to strawberry jam. Okay, so strawberry jam is just coming up to temperature. I'm just heating it up. I should also mention that I have a pot behind with water boiling, or just off the boil, and I have all my jars heating in there as well, because we're going to be doing a water bath afterwards. You don't have to. Open kettles are not recommended anymore. We used to always open kettle our jams, but they do recommend water bathing. And because I'm gifting these, I will be following whatever standards it is, which is 15-minute water bath once I've completed this step. So I'm just heating this back up. We need to bring it to a rolling boil, and then into the jars they're going to go. I'm going to use my piston funnel again to fill the jars. Much easier and cleaner to do it with the piston funnel. Such a useful tool in the kitchen. I've got two sizes of them now. I've got my little 600 and I've got my 1.2 litre one as well, which currently is at a friend's house. Because I wasn't going to be doing strawberry jams, I said, so I said she could borrow it. Well, all right, so I'm going to be using the little one, but that's okay. Still, it saves lots of mess, and it's a very quick and simple tool to use. I can't step away anymore. We will just keep going until this is at the boil. Alrighty, we are at the simmer. I can still stir down those bubbles. Just. Okay, we are just going to start our timer now, 60 seconds from now. This is a rolling boil. It cannot be stopped. No matter how much I'm trying to stir it down, I can't stir this down. Now I need to keep a really close eye on this, make sure it doesn't overflow, which is why I chose the larger pot also. And I'm just going to keep, this is seriously hot stuff now. This is like liquid sugar, so we need to be just really careful. We're just counting to 60 and then we're going to stop. All right, our minute's up. I'm just going to do a quick spoon test. So I'm dipping a spoon into my jam. Okay, just like so. I'm just going to wipe it carefully. Whoa, that's hot. And then I'm going to tilt it. If that gap doesn't fill within 3 seconds, then I'm at the consistency I want and it's not filling. I need to take this off the heat and get it straight into a bowl. I'm just dipping the saucepan into a bowl of cold water. I want to stop that cooking process straight away. Okay, so into a bowl, cold water, just to stop that cooking process any further. Okay, let's get busy. So while everything's still nice and hot, including the jam, I've just taken all these jars out of the boiling water, so these are still scalding hot as well. So I'll just be careful as I turn them all over. I've got my lids that have warmed in the water as well. No, you don't need to go through all of that process, but I am using lug lids, okay? So, and I want to make sure this is so clean that I don't have to go to the extra step of doing the rims, because I am doing lug lids, so I don't want that extra step of having to clean the rings, okay, because you've got to do every inch of the rim as well, the rim and the thread, because of using lug lids. All right, so this here is my piston funnel, and it has a stand, which makes life so easy to be able to put down something that's scalding hot like this jam as well. All right, so I can just pop it down, rest it, and move on. Okay, so I don't have to worry about what to do with it because it's a funnel. More important, it's a really thin funnel. I've got control by using my thumb, and I can fill my jars. So I'll start from these ones here, and I've got total control of every single drop. Makes no mess, but it's got to make short work of filling all these jars. How good is that? How good does that look? Okay, checking our internal temp. We want 94 or above, 88, 90, 92, 93, 94, 94.2, it needs 94. So she is ready. Let's check on this side as well. 93, 94, 6, 95, 2, perfect. All right, done. Alrighty, so this is our loaf. Needs to completely cool. It's the sacrificial loaf, the first loaf that's been made in that earthenware cloche. The cloche is back in the oven while the temperature of the oven is cooling down, that way that the cloche gets seasoned once again, so it's like a second seasoning for it. So there is a little bit of damage to the outer areas where it got caught on the cloche, which is why it needs to be seasoned again. The more they get used, the better they are. This can't be cut into now. This is our fermented dough bread. Can't be cut into until it's completely cooled or it'll be completely deflated. So we're going to leave this one alone. I have all of the pots of strawberry jam that are now come out of the water bath canner. They've been sitting out for about 15 or so minutes. So they can go onto the rack to finish cooling. A little bit on the hot side. But we will let them cool completely. There was 11 of them in total. Oh, where are they going to go? They will do for now. Here's our protein balls. They've been chilling in the fridge too for the past maybe hour. Maybe. It's been a busy morning, but it's still early. It's still not even lunchtime yet. Let's get one of these guys out. So this is what they look like. Let's cut one open. Yum. Full of nuts and all that goodness. So that is our protein balls. They're not going to last long. I probably should have put them in a sealed, covered type container where someone might not be able to see them. But, you know, they're not going to last long anyway. It's a great alternative snack instead of having something that's probably less healthier. And this here is our pull-in loaf, our sandwich loaf. This one I can cut into. It's a little bit warm, but it's not too bad. So I can cut the end off and we'll have a look at this one. So this is the first bread that was baked this morning. So it was a few hours ago now. But like a little drum. The crust has just started to soften, so it's not too bad. My family that eat the sandwich breads don't like crispy crust anyway, so let's get the first piece off. How does that look? You can just make out the swirl, of the bread. I'll take off the next slice because I will be slicing the full loaf. I tend to do it around about this temperature. It makes it easier to slice thinner slices. I can do the whole loaf on this board and then slide it into the bread bag. That's our sandwich bread. Perfect. Looks good, hey? As far as sandwich bread goes. Alrighty, I'm going to continue to cut up this loaf and put it into a bread bag. That's the center of the bread, still just as good as the beginning of the bread, so it's nice and cooked through. So I definitely find using a thermometer to check the temperature gives a more accurate reading. You get a better loaf because you're not guessing whether or not they're fully cooked on the inside. If you've got an oven that doesn't bake evenly, then I think it stands to reason that you would use a thermometer. So the internal temperature of cooked bread, you're looking for 94 degrees centigrade. I think that's about 200 Fahrenheit from memory from the course that we did. But 94 degrees is a cooked dough. Anything below that and your bread's not ready, and it tends to go up, I find, 10 degrees every 15 or so minutes. So if you check your bread and it is only at 80, then you've probably still got a ways to go, maybe 20-25 minutes to go. But you can't go by the colour of crust. That's always the difficult thing, because some ovens will make your crust colour up first, also depending on the amount of sugar you've put into your bread, for example, because that also gives you a lovely crispy crust, as well as how much hydration, you know, percentage of water or milk or whatever it is that you're using hydration wise, and whether or not you're using oil or some sort of product like that, whether or not you're using a dough enhancer. This one doesn't have any dough enhancers in it, no bread enhancers in this one. This one is all of just the normal ingredients. Instead of using shortening or lard or oil in the making of this bread, I use coconut oil for this one. Again, I'll put all of the instructions, not so much the instructions, but the recipe for the bread into the description so that you will end up with the same result if you're using a bread flour approximately the same consistency protein, because bread recipes are just that, recipes, but you will need to experiment a little depending on what flour it is that you use and what percentage it is. I happen to use flour that's 10.7% protein for every 100 grams. It's a bread flour that I've been using for quite some time, so I'm familiar with what it needs, and my recipes are based on, you know, my flour. But the recipes are pretty close. Like, I mean, it's just the hydration is really the biggest variable when it comes to bread making, is the amount of liquid that you're adding, which is why most recipes will say, you know, a starting amount like between 500 and 600 mils, for example. There's no exact amount should be given because it's a flour. Because of the flour, every flour reacts differently depending on the temperature and the humidity and the age that that flour is and when it was milled. Freshly milled flour, if you are milling flour berries, acts very differently to flour that's been previously milled. And then it depends on how old that flour is. If you've got flour that has been sitting in your cupboard for 6 months, you know, it's not a fresh flour. So it's going to act very differently to flour that is not as old as that, for example. I go through a 25 kilo bag of flour within 2 months, so it's never sitting on the shelf very long. And then I replace it with a fresh bag. Alrighty, that's it done. Sometimes I might have the same batch, so I might buy 2 of the bags at the same time, depending. Like I said, we're about to go into a 365-day pantry challenge, which means no buying groceries for a year. A year. A bit terrifying, but it's certainly doable. And you certainly get inventive and make sure, and that way I can rotate all my products, you know, and I don't have really old stock on the shelf, especially things like sugar, flour, things like that. Not so much sugar and salt sort of lasts forever. Pastas and things like that, but even canned goods and all of the products that we've been making also need to be rotated. So a 365-day challenge versus what was a 3-month challenge last time. Be interesting to see how I go. I will still be purchasing fresh dairy here and there, you know, as needed. But generally speaking, no grocery shopping at all. We'll see. So I tend to do the grocery shopping in bulk towards spring, summer. The rest of the year I don't tend to need to buy groceries. We grow enough of our own and have preserved enough. That's our bread. Done. So it has been a very productive and busy morning this morning, getting all of these jobs done, all before lunchtime, mind you, as well. So, and the kitchen's cleaned as well, which is a bonus. There's not much left to do today except put my feet up and have a bit of a break. Really, really happy with the Pullman tin. It has taken a little while to adjust and get used to using it. So for those bakers out there that are on the fence and not sure whether or not to purchase one, I've got smaller sizes as well. This is a big Pullman though. So I've got half loaf tins and I use them frequently, but to get a full-size sandwich bread like that, and by the way, this bread, how much flour did we end up using on this one? It was 600, so it's 60 cents. Yeah, 60 cents. And a little bit extra, just for those few extra little bits of ingredients, which I have in the fridge, and if you're a baker, you would have them as well. Just a little bit of sugar, salt, and a little bit of yeast, that's all. So it's economically, you know, it's a no-brainer to be making bread if you can, okay? If you want to, that is. You don't have to. It's just part of us here. We've been doing it for quite some time now. And I don't think I could go back to store-bought anymore. I think, you know, when I look at a loaf of bread in the shops and we bring them home and we try them, and they are not pleasant. The cheaper end breads, not the nice $7, $8 loaf of bread, but you know, your basic Coles, Woolworths breads that you're looking at around $2.70, $3, $2.80, something like that for a loaf of bread, and that price will no doubt continue to go up like everything else, you know, and it can be made for 60 cents. I mean, I don't get that. So yeah, I will continue to make fresh sandwich bread here at home instead, and now that we have the recipe that we consider to be almost foolproof. It's basic. It's pretty simple. I usually, what I do to when I go to my daughter's even, is I take a jar of pre-measured out all of the ingredients, and all I need to do is add the water, which I take in a flask as well. I weigh it up before I leave in a flask, and when I go over to hers to do a day of babysitting, I make them a loaf of fresh bread or bread rolls. It's so simple. And it takes no time. So you can prepare in ahead all of the bread in jars, ready to go, and all you need to do then is add the water and the little container, 30 grams, a tablespoon of oil or whatever to it. And I take over a little piece in a little, I've got near handy, a little sauce container. Basically is what it is, takeaway sauce containers. And I pop the oil in it, so I just pre-measure everything out. It takes me no time, and I can make them a fresh loaf of bread while I'm there. They make the sourdough. They're brilliant at that, but I, no. Our fermented bread is cooling at the moment, and it will be stored in the bread bag, which is a canvasy fabric style bag, instead of a plastic bag like this one. But this one's for the rest of the family, so simples. Alrighty, it's been a busy day. Time to put my feet up. Thanks very much. Bye, guys.